Derek Hayes sat in the command chair of the HMSS Vengeance and stared at the sensor displays. The massive dreadnought cut through space like a knife, its hull bristling with weapons and armor that made it the most dangerous ship humanity had ever built. But right now, those weapons felt useless. Derek's jaw clenched as he read the data again and again, hoping it would change. It did not change. "Captain, we have confirmation," Lieutenant Commander Victoria Reeves said from her station. Her voice was steady, but Derek heard the tension underneath. Victoria had served with him for 8 years. He knew her well enough to hear fear when it hid behind professional tones. "The fleet approaching our position is real. Not a sensor ghost. Not a malfunction. Real ships. 37 of them." Derek stood from his chair and walked to the main view screen. The darkness of space stretched before him, stars burning like tiny fires in the black. The fleet was still too far to see with human eyes, but the sensors painted the picture clearly. A formation of alien vessels was crossing human space at incredible speed. They had entered human territory without warning, without request for permission, without any attempt at communication. How long until they reached the outer defense line? Derek asked. 4 hours, sir, Victoria replied. Maybe 3.5 if they increase speed. Derek turned to his weapons officer, Lucas Grant. The man was young, maybe 30, with sharp eyes that missed nothing when it came to tactical situations. Lucas was good at his job. That was why Derek kept him close. "Status of our weapon systems, Lucas?" Derek asked. "All main batteries are hot and ready, sir. Point defense systems are online. Shield generators at full capacity. We can take a hit, Captain." Multiple hits. Lucas met Derek's eyes. "But those ships out there, sir, I'm not sure what they are. The sensor signatures do not match anything in our database. And there are so many of them." Derek nodded. He had expected that answer. Humanity had never encountered this species before. No one on Earth Command knew what these ships were capable of. No one knew if they came in peace or with weapons. "Open a communication channel on all frequencies," Derek ordered. "Send a greeting in English, Mandarin, and Spanish. Standard first contact protocol. Tell them who we are. Tell them we come with peaceful intentions." "Channel open, sir," the communications officer said. A young woman named Sarah worked the comm station. She looked nervous. Sending the message now. The message would take several seconds to reach the approaching fleet. Then, if they responded, their reply would take the same amount of time coming back. Derek returned to his command chair and waited. The bridge of the Vengeance was silent, except for the hum of the ship's engines and the soft beeping of the sensors. 5 minutes passed. Then 10. "Still no response, sir," Sarah said quietly. "Keep trying," Derek said. "Increase the transmission power. Try different frequencies. Maybe they do not receive on our standard bands." Another 10 minutes went by. Derek's daughter Emma was somewhere on this ship. She worked in the communications department, one level below the main bridge. She was junior staff, still learning, still new to the military life. Derek had worried when she chose to serve on the Vengeance. He had worried even more when she chose to serve at all. But Emma had her own mind. She always had. Derek was proud of her, but pride did not ease the fear that lived in his chest right now. "Captain, the alien fleet is accelerating," Victoria said urgently. "Speed increasing. They are now moving at extreme velocity." Derek leaned forward in his chair. "Are they changing course toward us?" "Negative. Current trajectory takes them directly to Earth." The words hit Derek hard. Directly to Earth. Not a deflection. Not a patrol of the outer systems. A direct line to Earth. "Captain, they are powering up some kind of energy systems," Lucas said. His voice had gone sharp and cold. "Multiple readings suggest weapons charging. I have never seen anything like this before, but the energy signatures are consistent with pre-attack preparations. Derek's hands gripped the armrests of his chair. They are arming weapons? Yes, sir. I would bet my commission on it. Still no response to our communications? Derek asked, though he already knew the answer. Nothing, sir. Complete silence, Sarah replied. It is like they are not even trying to talk to us. Derek thought of the colonies on the outer worlds, Mars, the mining stations, the research outposts. Thousands of humans living on those worlds, working, building, raising families. If that fleet got past the Vengeance, those people would have no defense. Earth Command was still scrambling to get defensive ships in position. The Vengeance was the only thing standing between the approaching fleet and humanity's world. Derek stood and began to pace. Every instinct in his body screamed at him to act, to fire, to destroy the threat before it destroyed Earth. But he was a soldier. He followed the rules. The first rule was never fire unless you were fired upon. Captain, those alien ships are now in weapons range of our forward batteries, Lucas said. Repeat, they are in range. Derek stopped pacing. He could see the tension on every face on the bridge. Victoria watched him with steady eyes. Lucas waited for orders. Sarah kept her hands ready at the communication station, though Derek knew there was no one on the other end listening anymore. Open another communication channel, Derek said. Priority 1. Send a direct message to the lead ship. Tell them they are in human space. Tell them to power down their weapons and state their intentions. Tell them we do not want conflict. Message sent, sir, Sarah said. The seconds dragged by. Derek found himself holding his breath. Captain, their weapon signatures are spiking, Lucas said. All ships are now at full weapons readiness. Targeting scanners locked onto our position and multiple points on Earth. They are targeting Earth? Derek felt something cold slide down his spine. Confirm that. Confirmed. Multiple targeting locks on the planet itself. On civilian areas. Population centers. Derek closed his eyes for just a moment. Then he opened them and looked at Victoria. Victoria knew what that look meant. She had served with him long enough to read the thoughts behind it. She nodded slightly, a gesture of understanding. Not agreement, understanding. Captain, they're not going to respond, Victoria said. They never were going to respond. They came here already prepared for war. Derek turned to face the view screen again. Out there, beyond the darkness, 37 alien ships were approaching with weapons aimed and charged. Humanity had tried to talk. Humanity had tried diplomacy. Humanity had tried to reach out an open hand. The aliens had responded by locking weapons on human worlds. Derek thought of Emma, working in communications, maybe still hoping for a response from the ships. He thought of the millions of people on Earth. He thought of all the people in human space who were counting on him to make a choice. He had tried to be the captain who chose peace. Now, he would have to be something else. Derek Hayes did not hesitate any longer. Red alert. All hands to battle stations, he said, and his voice was calm and clear. The alarm that followed was not calm. It was loud and sharp and filled with the knowledge that something terrible was about to happen. Throughout the Vengeance, crew members ran to their positions. Some of them would not come back. All weapons charged and ready, sir, Lucas said. His hands moved across his console like a pianist playing a familiar song. Each touch brought another weapon system online. Missiles loaded. Beam weapons powered. Everything the Dreadnought had to offer was now pointed at the approaching fleet. Fire on my command, Derek said. He stood from his chair. His legs felt steady even though his heart was pounding against his ribs. Target the lead 3 ships first. Full salvo. No holding back. Victoria's fingers moved across her tactical display. All weapons crews standing by, sir. Ready to execute fire command on your word. Derek looked one more time at the enemy fleet on the view screen. 37 ships. Each one of them massive. Each one of them armed. Each one of them carrying weapons that could destroy entire cities. Fire, Derek said. The Vengeance became a weapon. The Dreadnought's main batteries released their fury all at once. Missiles launched from the bays like angry hornets. Energy weapons carved through space in brilliant lines of blue and white. The destruction was immediate and total. The lead alien ship took the full force of the first strike. Its shields flared and buckled. Its hull cracked under the assault. Secondary explosions bloomed along its side like flowers of death. The second and third ships tried to maneuver, but they were too slow. Human missiles were fast. Human beam weapons moved at the speed of light. The Dreadnought had been designed for exactly this kind of battle. To stand alone. To take on odds that would destroy any other ship. The second alien vessel took a missile strike that split its hull in two. The third managed to raise shields, but they were not strong enough. A beam weapon carved through the side, and the ship vented atmosphere and crew into the void. Direct hits on all three targets, Lucas announced. His voice held a strange kind of satisfaction. The lead ship is dead in space. The others are crippled, but still moving. But Derek's satisfaction lasted only seconds. The remaining 34 alien ships returned fire. The space around the Vengeance erupted into chaos. Alien weapons were strange and fierce. They did not work like human technology. Where human weapons were precise and aimed, the alien weapons seemed to spray energy in wide patterns. They were not as efficient, but there were so many of them. So very many. A strike hit the starboard side of the Dreadnought. The impact threw crew members against walls and sent sparks raining from damaged systems. Derek gripped his armrest to keep from falling. Shields holding at 85%, Victoria called out. Portside weapons damaged. We are losing power to the secondary reactor. Reroute power to the main shields and keep returning fire, Derek ordered. Lucas was already firing again. The Vengeance's weapons lashed out at the surrounding ships, destroying 2 more and damaging several others. But the aliens were beginning to understand how to work together. They started moving in coordinated patterns, spreading out to avoid the Dreadnought's main weapons. Another strike hit. Then another. The Vengeance shook like a wounded animal. Shields at 60%, Victoria said. Her voice had changed. It was not calm anymore. It was urgent. Structural damage on decks 4 through 7. We have casualties, sir. Medical teams are responding. Derek closed his eyes for just a moment. Deaths. Real deaths. People he knew, maybe. People with families and dreams and futures that were now gone. This was the cost of command. This was what it meant to make decisions. Damage control teams to those decks, Derek commanded. Medical, prepare for mass casualties. Lucas, concentrate fire on the 3 nearest ships. We need to break their formation. The battle raged for what felt like hours, but was really only minutes. Time became strange in combat. Seconds stretched. Minutes compressed. Derek found himself in a state of absolute focus. Everything outside of the battle fell away. Emma, Earth, the fear, the doubt. All of it vanished and left only the immediate problem of surviving and killing the enemy before they killed him. Lucas Grant proved why he was the best weapons officer in human space. His aim was perfect. His targeting was flawless. When the Vengeance needed to destroy a ship, Lucas destroyed it. When it needed to damage a ship to make it retreat, Lucas did that instead. He was not just firing weapons. He was conducting an orchestra of death. Victoria Reeves, coordinated the defense with the tactical skill of a master chess player. She moved shield power where it was needed. She coordinated with damage control teams. She managed the crew and kept them fighting even when the situation looked impossible. But it was impossible. Derek could see it in the numbers that scrolled across his displays. The Vengeance could win this battle, but the cost would be catastrophic. His ship would be destroyed. Most of his crew would die, and the remaining alien vessels would still get through to Earth. Derek made a choice. "All hands, prepare to jump to hyperspace on my command," he announced. The bridge went quiet. No one expected to hear that order. "We are going to execute one final strike, maximum power, and then we jump. We do not abandon Earth. We preserve the Vengeance so we can fight another day. This is not retreat. This is strategy. This is survival." Victoria understood immediately. Full power to main batteries. One shot. Everything we have. The Vengeance's weapons, all of them, focused on the largest remaining alien ship. The Dreadnought could take multiple hits, but the weapons drained everything. The Vengeance's shields flickered. Her engines dimmed. Every system bled power to fuel that one massive strike. The aliens never saw it coming. The beam weapon cut through space like a surgical blade. It hit the largest alien ship directly in its center. The vessel broke apart like an egg. Debris scattered across 1,000 kilometers of space. "Jump," Derek commanded. The space around the Vengeance twisted and warped. The fabric of reality bent. For a moment that felt like forever and no time at all, the ship existed in a space between spaces. Then the jump was complete, and the Dreadnought emerged on the other side, damaged and hurt but alive. The alien fleet did not follow. Derek sat back in his chair and allowed himself to breathe. Around him, the bridge crew was silent. They had fought. They had killed. They had survived. But the cost was written on their faces. It was written in the damage reports flooding in. It was written in the list of dead that Victoria was already compiling. Emma. Derek suddenly remembered Emma. He activated the internal comm. "Communications department, report status," he said. A pause. Then Emma's voice came through, shaky but alive. "Communications is functional, Dad. Everyone here is okay. We were scared, but we are okay." Derek closed his eyes and felt something tight in his chest, loosen just slightly. Emma was alive. His daughter was alive, but so many others were not. Derek Hayes opened his eyes and looked at the stars beyond the view screen. The Vengeance was heading back to Earth, back home. He had made his choice. He had fired first. Now, the whole galaxy would have to deal with the consequences of Derek Hayes and humanity's first true act of war. The Vengeance limped back to Earth Station like a wounded animal returning to its den. The massive Dreadnought had taken heavy damage during the battle. Entire sections of the ship were without power. The hull was scarred and blackened by enemy fire. But the ship was still flying, and it was still deadly. Derek Hayes stood in the medical bay and watched Victoria Reeves lie on the surgical bed. She had taken shrapnel when a wall panel exploded during the final battle. The doctors said she would recover. She would walk again. But it would take time. Victoria had fought to stay conscious long enough to reach the medical bay herself. That was the kind of officer she was. "You did good out there," Derek said when Victoria opened her eyes. "We did what we had to do," Victoria replied. Her voice was weak, but her eyes were sharp. "Did we make the right choice, Captain? I keep asking myself that question. Did we do the right thing?" Derek did not answer immediately. He did not have a good answer. He had fired first. That was the fact of the matter. No matter how he tried to explain it, that simple truth remained. Derek Hayes had fired on an alien fleet without any declaration of war, without any final ultimatum. He had made the choice to be the aggressor. "Get some rest," Derek finally said. "I will answer that question when I know the answer myself." Earth Station was controlled chaos. The moment the Vengeance arrived, military personnel and government officials swarmed the docking bays. Derek was escorted from his ship immediately and taken to a secure briefing room. He expected to meet with military commanders who would congratulate him for defending Earth. Instead, he found himself facing the Galactic Council. There were 3 of them sitting at a table that stretched the width of the room. They were not human. 2 were tall beings with elongated bodies and skin that seemed to shift between blue and purple. The third was something else entirely, a creature with multiple arms and eyes that tracked Derek's movements simultaneously. Captain Derek Hayes, the blue-purple being on the left, said. His voice came through a translation device that made the alien words sound hollow and strange. "You stand accused of unprovoked aggression against a diplomatic delegation from the greater galactic community." Derek felt something cold settle in his stomach. Diplomatic delegation. That was what they were calling the fleet that had targeted Earth with weapons. That was what they called the ships that had locked weapons on civilian population centers. "Those ships attacked first," Derek said. His voice was steady. "They powered weapons. They targeted Earth. I responded to defend my world and my people. You fired before any weapons were directed at your vessel," the council member said. "We have reviewed the sensor data from the alien ships. They were performing standard recognition protocols, scanning for technological capability. Nothing more. You responded with nuclear and kinetic weapons. You killed 2,300 beings who were on a peaceful mission." Derek wanted to laugh. He wanted to stand up and scream. But he did nothing. He just looked at the council members and felt the weight of the conversation pressing down on him. "They locked targeting computers on civilian targets," Derek said slowly. "That is not a recognition protocol. That is preparation for attack. Your interpretation of events is limited," the second blue-purple being said. "You lack the understanding of galactic interactions that comes with hundreds of years of civilization. The Kalian species were merely following standard procedures. Your panic and ignorance triggered a conflict that need not have happened." The third being, the one with the multiple arms, spoke in a voice like grinding stone. "The Galactic Council has made a decision regarding your actions. Humanity is to be restricted. All trade will be halted. All technology sharing will cease. All diplomatic relations are suspended pending investigation. And you, Captain Derek Hayes, will be remanded into council custody for trial." Derek met their eyes. All of them. He did not look away. "And if I refuse," he asked, "then every human establishment in galactic space will be attacked. Every human colony will be destroyed. Every human ship will be hunted and eliminated. Your species will be erased from the galaxy." The threat hung in the air between them like a physical thing. Derek was escorted out of the briefing room and placed in a military detention facility on Earth Station. The walls were gray and smooth. The door was made of something he could not break. He sat on a narrow bed and waited for his trial, knowing that the fate of all humanity might rest on what happened next. News of the incident spread across the human colonies like wildfire. Within hours, debates were raging on every human world. Some people called Derek a hero. He had protected Earth. He had shown the galaxy that humanity would fight. Others called him a fool. He had started a war with beings far more advanced than humans. He had sentenced all of humanity to destruction. Emma Hayes watched the news feeds from the communications office. Her father was in detention. The whole world was divided. And somewhere out in the galaxy, the Kalian fleet was being repaired and resupplied by the Galactic Council, ready for another attack. Victoria Reeves recovered faster than the doctors predicted. She walked out of medical bay on crutches and went directly to the council chambers. She provided testimony about the weapon lock. She explained the targeting scans. She described the aggressive formation the alien ships had taken. The council listened but did not seem to care. They had already made up their minds. Lucas Grant did something different. He took the sensor data from the battle and began to dig deep. He looked for inconsistencies. He looked for evidence that could be interpreted a different way. And slowly, piece by piece, he found something interesting. The Kalian ship's power signatures did not match the description the council had given. The weapons locks were not just recognition protocols. They were pre-aimed targeting systems. And there was something else. Something that made Lucas realize that the truth was far more complicated than anyone had suspected. Lucas took his findings to Victoria. Then together they went to Derek's detention cell. The guards let them through. They had not been ordered to stop them. "Captain," Lucas said, "I think we have been looking at this wrong. I think the council knows we looked at this right, and they are covering it up." Derek stood from his bunk. His face was worn, but his eyes were alert. "Tell me," he said, and Lucas Grant told him everything. The truth was complicated and dangerous. Lucas Grant laid out the data on Derek's bunk, displaying it on a portable terminal that Victoria had smuggled past the guards. The evidence told a story that the Galactic Council did not want told. The Kalian ships were not a peaceful delegation. They were a military strike force sent by a faction within the Council itself. The older, more powerful species who controlled the Council had grown afraid of younger species gaining power. They saw humans as a threat, not because of any actual threat humans posed, but because humans represented change. Humans represented the possibility that the old powers would lose control. "The Council sent them to destroy us," Derek said quietly. "They wanted to eliminate humanity before we became a problem." "Yes," Lucas confirmed. "But here's the other part. The Kalian faction was also trying to take over the Council itself. They were supposed to destroy Earth and use that as justification for consolidating power. They would have blamed it on human aggression. They would have used the conflict to eliminate their rivals on the Council. So we were supposed to die," Victoria said. "And the Kalian fleet was supposed to fail so the Council could use that failure to grab more power." "Exactly," Lucas said. "But you fired first, sir. You destroyed enough of their fleet that the Kalian could not continue their invasion. You also destroyed their plan. Now the Kalian are wounded, and the Council is panicked because their conspiracy is exposed if they start pushing too hard for your execution." Derek stood and walked to the small window of his cell. Outside he could see the stars. Somewhere out there, the galaxy was watching humanity. Some wanted humans dead. Some wanted humans enslaved. But some, Lucas had discovered, wanted something different. "How many on the Council would support us?" Derek asked. "At least 5 of the younger member species," Lucas said. "They are tired of the old guard controlling everything. They see humans as the key to breaking the old power structure. There is a merchant named Sorth, Kelani species. He approached me when I was researching. He wants to talk to you." 2 days later, Derek was moved to a different room. This one was not a cell. It was more like a small office. The guards outside were fewer and less vigilant. Victoria and Lucas were allowed to visit freely. And then, one evening, another visitor arrived. Sorth was not what Derek expected. The Kelani merchant was roughly humanoid, but covered in scales that shimmered like oil on water. His eyes were large and intelligent. When he spoke, his voice was soft and thoughtful. "Captain Hayes, I am grateful you agreed to see me," Sorth said. He settled into a chair across from Derek. "Your species has stumbled into something larger than any of you realize. The Galactic Council is not the benevolent organization it claims to be. It is a tool used by the 5 oldest species to maintain their control over younger races. I understand that much, Derek said. What do you want from me? Your species is valuable, Soreth said. Humans think differently than we do. You see solutions that others cannot. You take risks that seem insane to us, but often succeed. The Council fears humanity because you are not bound by the old rules. You do not accept the hierarchy they have established. So you want to use us, Derek said flatly. I want to work with you, Soreth corrected. I want my species and yours to rise together. But first, you must be freed. The Council cannot execute you because it would expose their conspiracy. But they will hold you indefinitely if we do not act. What is your plan? Victoria asked. Soreth explained. The younger species on the Council were willing to challenge the old guard, but they needed proof. They needed Derek to be cleared of charges. And they needed humanity to take a place at the Council table, not as servants or subjects, but as equals. The evidence Lucas has gathered is substantial, Soreth said. With support from my people and the other younger species, we can force the Council to hold a real trial. Not one where the outcome is predetermined. A real trial where evidence matters. And when we present what Lucas found, the truth will be impossible to deny. They will never allow it, Derek said. They will have no choice, Soreth replied. Because if they refuse, they admit they are corrupt. And if they admit that, their authority collapses. The younger species will break away. A new council will form. The old guard will lose power. They would rather risk losing a trial than guarantee that outcome. Soreth was right. The trial was held in a vast chamber on Earth Station. Representatives from every major species in the galaxy attended. The 3 original council members who had confronted Derek were present. The Kalian representatives who had survived the battle were there as well, defended by the best lawyers money could buy. But the trial was fair. That was the difference. Emma Hayes testified about the weapons locks. She had been monitoring the communications when the targeting scans began. Her data was precise and clear. Lucas Grant presented the sensor analysis he had compiled. The files showed that the Kalian ships had powered their weapons before Derek gave the order to fire. Victoria Reeves provided testimony about the aggressive formation and the targeting algorithms. The Kalian tried to explain their actions as standard procedures, but their own data contradicted them. The younger species council members asked hard questions. Questions the Kalian could not answer. Satisfactorily. And then Soreth revealed the conspiracy. The Kalani merchant had obtained communications records between the Kalian faction and certain members of the old guard on the council. The messages were clear. The invasion of Earth was supposed to happen. Humanity was supposed to be destroyed. The Kalian were supposed to use that destruction to consolidate power. The trial lasted 3 days. When it ended, the verdict was unanimous. Derek Hayes had acted in self-defense. The Kalian invasion had been an act of war against Earth, and the conspiracy to destroy humanity had been exposed. The 5 council members who had backed the conspiracy were removed from power. The Kalian faction was stripped of their seat on the council, and humanity was given a choice. Accept a seat on the new council that the younger species were forming, or remain isolated. Derek chose to accept. As he was released from his detention, Emma ran to him and threw her arms around him. She held him tight, and Derek held her back. For a moment, nothing else mattered. His daughter was safe. His species was free. What now? Emma asked. Derek looked past his daughter at Victoria and Lucas standing nearby. He looked at Soreth, who was waiting with something that might have been a smile on his alien face. He looked out at the galaxy beyond Earth Station, vast and dangerous and full of possibility. Now, Derek said, we change everything. 6 months after Derek Hayes was cleared of all charges, the HMSS Vengeance emerged from the construction docks. The dreadnought had been rebuilt from the damage of the battle. Her hull was stronger than before. Her weapons were more advanced. Her crew was more experienced in actual combat than any human ship before her. But more importantly, the Vengeance had been transformed into something new. She was no longer a weapon of war. She was a symbol of humanity's place in the galaxy. A symbol that humans could stand as equals with any species. A symbol that smaller, newer species did not have to bow to the ancient powers anymore. Derek stood on the command bridge of his rebuilt ship and watched Earth grow smaller below him. The planet that had raised him, that he had sworn to protect, was now just one home among many that humanity would help protect. The crew of the Vengeance was still the same core. Victoria Reeves commanded the tactical operations. Lucas Grant managed the weapon systems. Sarah continued to work communications, but the ship was different now. Human crews worked alongside Kelani technicians. Representatives from 3 other younger species had joined the Vengeance as exchange officers. They would learn from humans. Humans would learn from them. That was the real mission now. Not war. Learning. Emma Hayes had left her position in communications. She had received an offer from the new council to work as a diplomatic liaison. It was a position of honor and responsibility. Emma had accepted without hesitation. Now she was on Earth, learning languages and studying the cultures of 24 alien species. She was building bridges where Derek had been forced to build walls. Derek had not wanted to become the representative for humanity on the new council. But no one else was willing. No one else had the credibility. Derek had stood alone on the bridge of his ship and made a decision that changed the galaxy. Now he would have to live with the consequences of that decision for the rest of his life. The new council was different from the old one. There were no ancient powers controlling everything from on high. Instead, there were equals. The Kelani had a voice equal to the humans. The Vreth species had a voice equal to the Kalian. The younger races were finally being heard. It was messy. It was chaotic. Decisions took longer to make because everyone had to be consulted. Arguments broke out constantly over resources and territory and trade agreements. Derek spent most of his days in meetings, listening to complaints and concerns and proposals. It was nothing like commanding a starship. It was far more frustrating and far less clear-cut, but it was working. Victoria Reeves recovered fully from her injuries. She became Derek's second-in-command on the Vengeance and the person he trusted most when making difficult decisions. Victoria understood that sometimes the right choice was not the safe choice. That sometimes you had to risk everything to protect something that mattered. Lucas Grant had requested transfer to the new Joint Military Academy, where all younger species trained their officers together. He had discovered that he loved teaching more than fighting. His students came from every species that was part of the new council. They learned human tactics and human ways of thinking. They taught Lucas their own approaches to problems. Within a year, the Academy had produced a generation of officers who thought differently than any officers the galaxy had ever seen. Soreth had become one of Derek's closest allies. The Kelani merchant had walked away from trade to become an advisor on the council. He pushed for policies that would strengthen the younger species and prevent any one faction from gaining too much power. Soreth and Derek did not always agree, but they always respected each other's perspective. 6 months after the Vengeance left Earth, Derek received a message from Emma. She had successfully negotiated a trade agreement between 3 different species. It was a small deal in the grand scheme of things, but it was important. It was real. It was the kind of work that would build the future. Derek was in his quarters when he read the message. He smiled at the thought of his daughter conducting diplomacy. She was so much braver than he was. She was building peace where he had learned to make war. There was a knock at his door. Victoria entered without waiting for permission. That was the way they worked now. No formality between them. Just two people who had faced death together and survived. "You look sad, sir," Victoria said. "I was thinking about the dead," Derek replied. "The people we lost in the battle. 237 human beings. 2,300 Kalian. All because I made a choice to fire first. All because the Kalian faction decided to invade Earth," Victoria said sharply. "You did not start this war. You ended it. You ended it quickly and with fewer casualties than there would have been if we had tried to defend against their invasion." "I still fired first," Derek said. "Yes," Victoria agreed. "And that is the burden you will carry for the rest of your life. That is what command means, sir. You make decisions that cost lives. The question is not whether you made the right decision. The question is whether you learned from it and did better next time." Derek nodded. Victoria was right. That was the real measure of a leader. Not whether every decision worked out perfectly, but whether you learned and grew from your mistakes. The Vengeance continued on her mission of exploration and partnership. The ship visited worlds that had never seen a human before. Derek attended meetings where he was the only representative of a young species in a room full of ancient powers. He spoke, he listened, he learned. And slowly, through patience and persistence, he changed the way the galaxy thought about humanity. Years passed. The new council became stable. Trade increased. Technology was shared. Species that had never worked together began to collaborate on projects that benefited everyone. The galaxy was not perfect. There were still conflicts and disagreements. But it was better than it had been. Derek eventually stepped down from his position on the council. A younger human took his place. Someone who had learned from Derek's experience but was not bound by his mistakes. The galaxy moved forward. Derek returned to commanding the Vengeance, but not as a warship. The Dreadnought became a research vessel. She explored the unknown regions of space, discovering new species and new worlds. She became what Derek had always wanted it to be, a messenger of peace and knowledge instead of destruction. Emma became one of the most respected diplomats in galactic space. She negotiated treaties between species that had been enemies for hundreds of years. She built understanding where there had been only suspicion. Victoria wrote a book about her experiences commanding the tactical systems during the first contact battle. It became required reading for every military officer in the known galaxy. Her analysis of how to fight against unknown opponents became doctrine. Lucas Grant trained thousands of officers. Many of them became great commanders themselves. They thought differently because Lucas had taught them to think beyond the old ways. Sorath lived to see his dream of a balanced council become reality. The Kelani merchant had changed the course of history by choosing to help a species that most of the galaxy wanted to destroy. 20 years after the first contact battle, Derek stood on the observation deck of the Vengeance and watched stars go by. The ship was traveling toward a region of space that no human had ever explored before. Somewhere out there, a new civilization was waiting to be discovered. New friends. New allies. New possibilities. Derek thought about the choice he had made on that day when the alien fleet approached. He thought about the moment when he had said fire, instead of trying for one more moment of peace. He thought about the lives that choice had cost. He could not change the past. He could only build a better future. The Vengeance jumped to hyperspace and disappeared into the darkness of space. Behind it, in the place that was the center of the new galactic community, humans and aliens worked together to build something that had never existed before. Not empire, not dominion, but partnership. Derek Hayes had fired the first shot in humanity's war for the galaxy. But he had also been the first human to forge peace with species that once wanted only to destroy his world. That was his real legacy. Not the weapons he had used, but the bridges he had built, the galaxy would never be the same. And neither would humanity. In the years to come, humans would look back at that first contact and remember Derek Hayes. Some would call him a warrior. Some would call him a hero. Some would call him foolish. But Derek knew what he really was. He was the captain who had made a choice when it mattered most. He had chosen to protect his people. And in doing so, he had accidentally saved the galaxy from the corruption of the old powers. The vengeance sailed on through the stars. And the new era that Derek had helped to create continued to unfold. One discovery at a time, one treaty at a time, one act of courage at a time. Humanity had arrived in the galaxy, not with apologies or pleas for acceptance. Humanity had arrived with strength and wisdom and the willingness to fight for what was right. And in the process, Derek Hayes had changed everything.